Hello everyone and welcome back to Brutal Truth. Today we will be starting our very first video series entitled Skate Kings, and I see no one more fit to make the first episode than Rodney Mullen. Because it is a fact that skateboarding would not even resemble what it does today had it not been for this one man.
Street skateboarding exists as it does now because of Rodney Mullen.
If you have been around skateboarding at all, everyone knows that Rodney was the first person to ever do a flat ground ollie.
Even on vert, when ollies were first invented, Alan Gelfand didn't really hit his tail, he just kind of scooped it. And so when we would try to mimic that on the street, we would just do it without hitting our tail and barely get anywhere, and Rodney figured out how to snap it and pop it up. And I'm sure that he was the first one who ever did a flat ollie that was over like 6 inches.
And how he would then go on to revolutionize the sport by inventing practically every trick known to man.
Rodney Mullen invented all of the modern street skating tricks. I mean, he's the godfather of all that's current.
And we'd watch him and just be like, he's doing stuff that no one has even thought of or could do if they put their mind to it.
This alone would go on to inspire generation after generation to look at what he had done and push it farther.
It's crazy because I never knew. I thought Jason Lee invented the 360 flip, but I didn't know to watch a video 10 years before that and see the first one. I've come to learn it, a couple of years ago that Rodney Mullen invented every trick that I know how to do. He was just pushing himself physically and mentally and opening new doors.
But this is Brutal Truth, and repeating the same old thing that everyone else has already said is not what we do. So today we shall explore a side of Rodney that is largely ignored, a side that is slightly less brutal and just a little bit beautiful. This man is nothing short of a modern-day savant trapped in a skateboarder's body. He is autistic.
I don't know what was wrong with me, but teachers would reach out, troubled kid. Is he autistic? Or I don't know. I could never speak. I went through huge parts of my life not even speaking. I spoke in whispers. It's weird. Everyone did in the house, mostly. Skateboarding, what it represented, the ability to create, to express myself, it became my voice.
He is self-deprecating even with all he has achieved.
I have 36 trophies, or had. I have 0 trophies because I threw them away or gave them away because I hate them.
He lived a very troubled childhood with what some would guess to be an abusive father based on the way he speaks of him.
I remember I was super thin and I was falling apart in school because I really didn't care anymore. And I remember he couldn't do anything about it. It wasn't acting out. You don't do that in the house. I mean, that's how, you don't do that. But the thing is I withered in a way that you could not control. And I was spinning. I remember the teachers and stuff, like going to counseling, we don't know what's wrong, we know something's wrong at home. Eat.
And because of all this, he has been an outsider for the majority of his life. Yet somehow through it all, he displays a level of intelligence and drive that is quite simply unparalleled. And anyone who has had the experience of being around him will tell you no different.
He could explain it to you and break it down to like the weight distribution for your foot. Like, do you lean a little bit on the outside of your heel? Do you lean on the ball of your foot? The way the truck sits on the block, just from like being around him and stuff, like I have a new understanding of the mechanics of skateboarding in a way, like down to like the way a truck sits on a block.
Whether it be the way he views his skateboarding,
nose wheelie, not a flip nose wheelie over the gap, for instance. So you have these motions that you know in your head. I know what a flip feels like. But when you're actually, what makes the trick for you is finally you pack all that stuff for granted and you forget about it. And you're focusing only on, or I am at least, you're focusing on only one aspect of where my eye is and my back shoulder is at the time I see the edge of the table. And then everything else is taken for granted and runs autopilot. But as long as I can control that one and get a good nose wheelie from the start, I've got it. And that's how it works for me. Stack, 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 bracket and put like a tablecloth over it and focus on this last little bit, and that's what does it.
or the way he speaks on life and how he has a tendency to compare practically anything to skateboarding, or just his innate ability to inspire anyone he comes in contact with, no matter who they may be, big or small.
I learned finger flip bears on vert because I was inspired by Rodney doing it, and I wanted to take some of these things that he was doing and try to learn them in the air, you know, in the pools. That was the first one I did that was directly linked to freestyle.
And when I say inspire anyone, I don't just mean any skater. I mean anyone. They invited him to speak at TED Talks, for Pete's sake. And all of this stems from his ability to focus on individuality, to find what is good within himself rather than looking around for something better.
My mom, she was a concert pianist when she was a little kid, and I grew up around music, classical music. So I grew up hearing it and reading about these guys, these great composers, and Beethoven's music always struck me. Always. He had this fire, you know? I remember reading the story of him going deaf and pushing himself into self-isolation, and that's where he became himself. And to me, that was, wow. Don't let anything poison your individuality. Be away, break away, and look in, not outward. What makes us all do what we do at a high level is an inspiration that comes so deep as almost like a controlled desperation. And if you can't tap into that, then it just extinguishes. And you can't do it through here. It's to seep way down in there.
Most people would think of being an outsider as depressing, but Rodney saw this as a gift and an opportunity to expand upon himself and to create.
My biggest blessing was being in isolation. That was my blessing. Maybe if I were somewhere else out here, I would have been like them.
These are the traits that have allowed him to adapt and overcome every hardship that has come his way. When Rodney first started skating, the popular thing to do was freestyle, which at the time looked like more of a dance routine than anything else. Which explains why Rodney's far more technical version of it immediately blew everyone else out of the water. But at the very height of his career, the more modern street skating began to take over the market, and Rodney's entire sport of freestyle died practically overnight. But did that stop Rodney? No, he began to adapt to street skating.
So making the transition, some of the hardest things to do was my eyes. Where to hold my eyes. Freestyle, you look down. You're never skating at anything. It took months to overcome stuff like that. Yeah, but then a lot of the body motions and stuff, you know so well from freestyle that I think I had a little head start.
And found that once he made the leap to this new era of skating, that his old set of skills were actually the very thing that made him stand out amongst the rest.
And while I had to let a lot of it go, never to be used again, which sucked, what I had done was so perfected that once I made the jump, it actually gave me a kind of distinction that wasn't accessible in the same way.
When he first started street skating, he was trying to imitate those that had came before him. And it wasn't until a fellow team member reminded him of who he is and what he can do that he realized that not only could he do this, but that he could make it better.
And I was thinking, man, my skating, it kind of sort of feels like me, but I'm learning basics, and it's not an extension of what I feel anymore. And now that I've learned basics, I'd love to just start like hybridizing, like cross-pollinating. And that's where MJ, that was the first time, and this connects with enjoy. Mark just goes, Rod, because we went skating one night where I skate, and he's like, Rod, just do whatever you want to do. That's what I want you here for. You don't have to play catch up or learn how to do this or that or feel so out of your element. Just take what you have and run with it. I want you to be happy. That's your contribution. And oh my gosh, to me, I was just, that lit something in me.
Freestyle skating had a heavy focus on balance and being able to move the board in odd ways in order to show the audience that it could be ridden in ways they had never thought possible. And by applying those same set of skills to modern street skating, he birthed an entirely new subgenre, which some would eventually refer to as tech skating. And with the debut of the Rodney Mullen vs. Day.1 song videos, this manual and spin-heavy version of skateboarding would be solidified in history forever. This style of skating would bring Rodney more attention than he ever could have imagined, and ascend him to a position of authority within the skateboarding world. But the tricks he invented and the flashy way of skating are not the only reasons they refer to him as the godfather of modern street skating. There is one more reason, and this one is rarely ever discussed.
This is something a lot of people, just don't even know or don't even want to admit, but basically Rodney invented today's modern board shape, period. And it all started with the Mike Vallely Animal Farm board. And it went from there, and Rodney basically took that board and started rounding the tail and then rounding the nose so you could ollie better. Before you knew it, you got a big, long freestyle board.
The guy just has a knack for solving problems, and even now in his 40s, as he faces the adversity of simply getting old, he is still coming up with new ways to keep himself in the game. All those years of skating wore down the cartilage in his hips, which now limits the range of motion in his lead leg. But after some time to think about his situation, he realized that maybe he could gain that range of motion in his back leg. So just out of pure love for the sport and the refusal to quit, Rodney has completely relearned the art of skateboarding in the opposite stance at over 40 years old. For those of you that don't understand what that means, he has started skating with his right foot forward rather than his left as he used to. And to put it into perspective as to how hard that is, it is essentially as if you were right-handed and had dedicated your entire life into becoming a masterful painter. And then suddenly, right in the middle of your career, someone chopped off your right hand and now you have to relearn everything you just spent your whole life on with your left hand. Yeah. And the craziest part about it all is that the dude doesn't even see why there's a difference. To him, everything is just simply having fun on his skateboard.
Watch. This is older footage right now. Look, I'm regular. Left foot forward. Forward, backwards. Forward, backwards. Look at the locking of the hips. Very distinctive. Backwards. After this trick, the work started. This is switch, sort of. Backwards, sort of backwards, looseness. Forwards, forwards. Where did backwards go? This is just all over the place. This would be inaccessible without the work. A switch trick cannot be done switch.
Wait, what? Repeat that?
A switch trick cannot be done switch.
What does that even mean, Rodney? He has become so proficient in a switch stance that he sees them as nothing more than one and the same, and believes that any skater has the ability to do what he has done. The only thing holding you back is just the mental barrier of doing it, according to him.
I realized, wow, every skater is good enough to stand on their board exactly the opposite in both ways, where a kickflip and a heel flip and a 360 flip should be the same way in our minds, but your body won't let you because it naturally kind of forms. That's the problem. Who even cares if I learn how to flip out of a primo in another way? Do I even care after?
He doesn't even understand why we named them something different.
And through this fracturing of the nomenclature, a whole little range of tricks grows out that defy even being named.
What world did this man come from? Krypton? Planet Vegeta? Rodney has become nothing short of a living legend in today's society, and in my opinion, he deserves nothing less than that. From the tricks you do to the board you ride, none of it would have been as it is had it not been for Rodney Mullen. But more importantly, Rodney shows us a new way of thinking. He shows us to be an individual, to look within instead of outward, and to progress ourselves, and everything else will come naturally. To believe in ourselves even when no one else does, and to continue doing what we love at any cost. And it is for these reasons that we place nobility upon him in the skateboarding world. Because although time will move on, and plenty of other legendary skaters have risen, and plenty more will rise in the future, there will always be only one true king of skateboarding. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you like this, remember it's the beginning of a series, so make sure to leave suggestions on who I should do the next one about. I think I have about 3 more planned out, but after that it will rely completely on what is suggested. And for all my scooter people out there, trust me, I have not forgot about you. I am planning to have a history of scootering video up soon, how the sport got started, the first pro model decks, things of that nature. So once again, if you think that's a good idea, or maybe you would like to suggest something you think is better, please let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, tell your mom, tell your dad, tell everyone you know that here at Brutal Truth, you'll get the opinions you won't hear anywhere else. Tell them like it is, Rodney.
I spent a lot of time in the stacks in the libraries, and you're looking at these stacks of unreadable masterpieces that men devoted their lives standing on the shoulders of geniuses before them, Bertrand Russell, Principia Mathematica, and all these things that, who will read those? How will they change society? How do they really factor into things? Me? I was able to contribute with a lot of tricks. Those tricks now have names, and those tricks factor into what everybody else does. And in a very meaningful way, I have helped create a vocabulary by which this community communicates. I mean, you can hear people chat, listen to how skaters talk. These are all words and expressions, things that we create. It's our language, but it's also physical. And it helps define us as individuals, how we fit within that framework. It helps define the community itself. And so when I look and I think of the contribution of all these geniuses and the smell and the browning paper of these dusty books that no one will read, I think that I am so rich and what I have done has meaning. So, I don't know what that answers. Where do we start?